Greetings everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm your host Captain Rye and today's YouTube video comes from subscriber Ethan7878. Ethan is here in the Tier 8 standard German battleship, the Bismark. But unlike the actual Bismark, Ethan is actually going to do something that's more notable than sinking one poor unfortunate battlecruiser. As the battle gets underway, it's the Tierra del Fuego map, and it's standard battle mode, which is a battle mode you don't see too often on this map, but it does occasionally pop up. The teams are pretty much equal as far as number of destroyers, though Ethan's team does have a destroyer advantage, having 4 of them versus the enemy team's 3. However, at least 2 of those destroyers are pink, which of course means they are full supporters of breast cancer awareness. No, that's not correct. We all know what their pink names mean. But in a destroyer, and hell, even in an aircraft carrier, that's not always an intentional thing. Especially considering it is surprisingly easy to get caught up in the moment and not pay attention to the friendly teammates or other destroyers who are pushing around the sides of islands, turning around, or otherwise in front of you. Ethan takes a brief pause here behind an island, but he's still being detected, and of course, he's taking long-range gunfire from enemy ships. He spots a Miyoko broadside out in the open. He gets shots out there, but the Miyoko turns hard and away, and all of those shots miss, which is always a disappointment. However, the advantage that Bismarck has over the other battleships in the game is that it has a slightly faster reload, though that's partly to do with the fact that it has a slightly smaller gun caliber at Tier 8. Specifically, it's got a 15-inch gun as opposed to a 16-inch gun found pretty much across the board on all the other Tier 8 battleships. The advantage, though, is that it gets a 5-second quicker reload. And the penetration values minus 1 inch are still pretty good. Again, spots that same Miyoko, this time again broadside out in the open, but trying to get behind an island. He lands a couple of citadels right there and finishes him off for a first blood. But he's not the only one to get a first blood. The enemy team manages to kill one of his friendly destroyers at the exact same time, securing a double first blood, something that you really don't see all that often, and something that has to be done within, I think, half a second of each other, and or even less than that, in order to actually manage to do it. Now, the enemy team has managed to remove 2 of his destroyers from the game, but his team has managed to kill 2 of their cruisers. So overall, because destroyers are worth less points than cruisers, Ethan's team is actually up on points. But not at the moment. Well, take that back. It's a pretty equal battle as the enemy team kills one of their ships and Ethan manages to get shots out and finishes off that Cleveland. And more importantly, he manages to citadel the Cleveland, which is actually kind of surprising considering the Cleveland is particularly trollish with the way its citadel sits. But good job on that, though he probably didn't actually need to citadel it considering he was an incredibly low health cruiser anyway. Now, one thing I will point out here, and I don't know if this is necessarily a replay bug, but it looks like, Ethan, you're running your Bismarck without any kind of concealment or camouflage. At the very least, you should consider putting the dazzle camo on the, I think the Type 5 or something, that reduces the accuracy of incoming shots by 4%. You might not necessarily need the concealment, but you should definitely have that dazzle camo. That way, at the very least, the enemy gunners will occasionally miss you, thank you to RNGesus. Sitting behind the island here, Ethan is taking stock of the situation. Now, he knows that there's a Tirpitz sitting on the other side of that island at effectively point-blank range. And this is one of those interesting situations. The Tirpitz is very focused on the friendly cruiser that's up there, who is sailing broadside onto him. Actually, he was focused on the cruiser. The cruiser's no more. He's now focused on the battleship that's broadside onto him up there. But that battleship's got himself in a bad situation, as he's really got two battleships shooting at him. He's got a Tirpitz, and he's gonna have an Amagi shooting at him soon as well. So he can really only angle against one or the other, and that's the problem. He's also very low health, which means he's gonna get finished off pretty soon. Enemy Tirpitz up here starting to push forward as Ethan comes around the side of this island, and his secondaries start blazing away. He gets shots out there at that Tirpitz and causes a whopping amount of damage. Just look how much damage that Tirpitz took. That's one of the downsides to having the turtleback armor, is that while you avoid getting citadeled, you do take a lot of damage in the soft, squishy areas of your ship, like the bow and the stern. So who's going to get the kill? Unfortunately, Ethan does not manage to secure that kill with secondaries, which is a little bit of a shame, but he does cause a lot of damage as a result of all those secondaries. Enemy Benson pushes up and around the corner here as the torpedoes from the Tirpitz come in there, but they are just short of Ethan, which is pretty good because it looks like he would have been hit by at least two of them. And you definitely don't want to get hit by torpedoes. That Benson out in the open, just getting wrecked by Ethan's secondary fire. And that's one of those advantages that the Bismarck, and now the Tirpitz, though the Bismarck has a little bit better, has over other battleships, is the caliber of their secondary guns combined with the rate of fire, and their sheer number means that with manual secondaries, advanced firing training, and the secondary module, you can extend their range up to 10 kilometers, and you can make them incredibly accurate, 60% more accurate. It's effectively like having a Nuremberg-class cruiser strapped to the side of your ship, which means any destroyer which ventures into detectability is going to have a bad time. Surprisingly enough, the friendly battleship that's behind Ethan still alive, and that's partly to do with the fact that Ethan distracted the Tirpitz from finishing him off, and now that battleship has been engaged with the Amagi that's in the back there. That Amagi playing very, very passively, and unfortunately for him and his team, that's going to cost him and his team a lot of the match because he's unable to push up and put pressure on this side. Ethan's team is now in prime position to put pressure on the enemy base, and they've actually managed to kill a few more ships, which really puts them up on points. But because this is standard battle mode, you'll notice that the battle keeps dragging on as there's, well, no way for anybody to gain a sudden and decisive points lead without killing everything. Enemy cruiser up here is about half health and sailing broadside on, so Ethan gets shots out there, but those went a little bit far forward as that cruiser is no fool and staggers his speed, slowing down suddenly to avoid those shots. The enemy is in the process of capping Ethan's base, and there's not really too many people in a position to do anything about it, and that could be a serious problem, as at least one of the ships that's in that cap is the enemy destroyer. And so long as that enemy destroyer stays hidden, he can effectively stealth cap, but he's not having a good time of it, as there is at least one friendly ship in the cap point now, stopping the progress. And of course, that's the pink destroyer. So they're going to earn themselves redemption by defending that base. Ethan gets more shots out there, doesn't manage to citadel that cruiser, which is really, really kind of an unfortunate situation, as that cruiser is very low. Ethan started to perform the classic bow-on reversing meta, but he's taking a lot of damage doing it. And it's not necessarily something that I would recommend in this kind of situation, mostly because you've got a couple of battleships, you're being flanked by at least one cruiser who's just going to continue to pump high explosive into you while you sit out here in the open. And you've got an island that's blocking your retreat path. You're also not in a corridor, which means other ships, like these other battleships up here, can effectively sail around and hit you from the side while you're dealing with the ones in front. In this particular situation, your mobility is definitely an important factor. However, it is important to note that in the Bismarck, you've got some pretty good bow armor, which is going to make doing this a little more effective than if you were in another ship. You've also got some amazing secondaries, and just look at the accuracy on those secondaries as they go out there. They're just landing hit after hit after hit, and they're pretty good at causing fires. But again, in this situation, you've got yourself a bow on to one battleship, but you have another battleship that, if you weren't distracted, could cause some serious problems pumping shots into you from the side. And because of the angle that you're at, in order to get your guns away on to those targets, you're actually not as angled as you should be and are taking more damage than you ought to be. Enemy Bismarck up here, completely, totally blissfully unaware that he's got the broadside of a very low HP battleship to shoot at, and instead is continuing to focus down the ships in front of him, which is proving to be beneficial for Ethan and his teammates as they push up here. Another friendly battleship pushing up to the side here is going to effectively protect Ethan from shots from the side because he's that close and because he's more of a broadside target. More shots out there. Can Ethan secure the kill on this enemy Bismarck? Come on. Yes, he manages to do it. And at this point, he's done a pretty good amount of damage. He's already earned himself a Confederate and a high caliber. And thanks to his secondaries, he finishes off the enemy battleship with secondaries, and within 10 seconds of the first one, earning himself a double strike and an arsonist because of all of the fire damage caused to that battleship due to his secondary guns. Now in this particular case, the bow on and reversing meta did work for you, but that doesn't work in every case, and again, you did take a lot more damage than I personally would have felt comfortable taking in that kind of situation. Still though, a solid tactic when used well, and if used with supporting fire like you had there, it can definitely be a good thing. Now Ethan calls out in chat here asking the friendly battleship that's off to the side here and in front of him to let him have the kill on the Amagi because he is on 4 kills and an Amagi kill would be a Kraken unleashed. Unfortunately, his Kraken is denied by the friendly battleship. And there's only one enemy ship left, and well, that enemy ship is all the way up at their base. And he's full strength, which is a bit of a problem, though it is important to note that Ethan has repaired quite a bit of that damage, but a full strength battleship, even versus a half strength battleship a tier up, absolutely has a superior advantage, and if it's captained really well, it can definitely wreck anybody who decides to take it on. So Ethan's going to get turned around here. He has kind of decided at this point that yes, in fact, he does want to try for that Kraken. He's incredibly far away and his team is already halfway done with the cap progress of the enemy base. But it's standard battle mode, and this is something that I feel I should point out now to any new players. There is no such thing as a draw. Or I should say, to get a draw is incredibly rare. Because of the points system, you have to earn the exact same amount of points at the exact same time when the clock strikes 0 in order to earn a draw. So leaving the base capture at this point to go pursue that last enemy no longer counts as a draw. If your team has more points, you will win. The only risk of this is if that enemy ship manages to kill a number of enemy vessels, then he could actually counter the points, drop the scores, and possibly win it. But at this particular moment, he's taking hits from pretty much everybody, and he's got to deal with a destroyer launching constant streams of torpedoes at him. So he's maneuvering pretty hard. Ethan's using the superior reload of his battleship here to try and get shots out as quickly as possible onto this enemy battleship, but he's having trouble aiming. A lot of his shots are going short, and a lot of his rounds are going long, and that guy is very low health. The real question here is who's going to manage to secure the kill? Last shots out, and these are probably going to be the last shots Ethan's going to get to fire in this game as long as that enemy battleship is pushing up. But he manages to do it and secure his Kraken Unleashed. Surprisingly enough, 168,000 damage done in that battle. Look at all of those awards. How does the Bismarck hold all of these awards? Confederate Double Strike, a Close Quarters First Blood, Arsonist, Dreadnought, Kraken Unleashed, and High Caliber. Damn, son. The only two heroic achievements you didn't get in that battle were Witherer and Solo Warrior. Top of the team for XP earned, but of course with that kind of medallion streak just hanging off the side of your ship there, you would expect nothing less. So thank you, Ethan, for sending me this wonderful Bismarck replay. And that's it for today's video, folk. If you liked the video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment down below. If you'd like to get semi-regular channel news and updates, you can do so by liking and following me on Facebook. If you'd like to help support me and the channel, as well as gain access to some of my World Warships replays early, you can do so by becoming my supporter on Patreon. If you've got a replay like this one that you'd like to see submitted on my channel, you can send it to my email. And if you'd like to watch me play World Warships among other games live, you can do so by liking and following me on Twitch. For now. You can find the links for all of those in the video description down below. And as always, I'll see you next time. This is Captain Rye, signing off.